Are you gonna run? Are you gonna hide? Run.
The answer is hide from these sequels. It's over. It's finally over. My quest to complete the Highlander franchise has at last come to its end. The concluding chapter of Highlander Endgame is the film we'll be looking at today, and it gives me so much joy to know I will never have to watch any of these films ever again. Exclude the original from that saying, of course. So what is there to say about the third sequel to a film that never needed one in the first place? Well, as I stated in my previous review, I'd never actually gotten through the full runtime of this or The Final Dimension before. The Final Dimension is and was dreadful. This isn't much better, but it is the best sequel we have seen thus far. And much like The Final Dimension, I watched the producer's cut this time, which was supposedly much better than the theatrical release. That's 2 out of 4 films, so half of them have had to undergo massive additions from behind the scenes after its initial release. Yeah, not the best stat to hold on to, really. In truth, I really am in two minds. On one hand, it is the best sequel we've gotten, and on the other, that bar isn't really set very high, and it still isn't the best. I'm sure plenty of people will see light at the end of the tunnel, because at least this film had some sort of story going for it. Plenty of little bits still retconned, as you would expect, but I wasn't as mad as I was here as I was in The Final Dimension. However, saying that, I was pissed that they killed Rachel at the very beginning. I suppose it was to underline Kel's intentions and Connor's fabled curse. Yeah, that bit pissed me off royally, and the worst part of the film is the beginning. Agonisingly slow, we had 2+ minutes of credits with nothing happening on screen, and when it finally does start, Rachel is killed. Brilliant. And the film actually had the gall to do plenty of flashback sequences. Connor returning to Glenfinnan, seeing his mother get burnt at the stake by Kel way back when, and even other newly added scenes with his first wife Heather. Wasn't a fan of any of those scenes in truth. I felt it was too on the nose of playing with the nostalgia effect. It worked a tad before in the previous films, but this time it doesn't work in the slightest for me. The best part in Scotland was when Duncan stood at Macleod's grave, and yes, spoiler, Connor Macleod does meet his end here. About time if you ask me. Poor Christopher Lambert finally found his way out, but at least his death was the best scene in the film. Tasteful and respectful. Connor essentially let Duncan kill him. Neither one of them was powerful enough to defeat a man no one had ever heard of before this film started before. 600+ confirmed kills to Connor's measly 250-ish. Get out of here. I guess the Kurgan was into the thousands then. And still, if you added Connor and Duncan's tallies together, you were barely above the halfway point of Kel's kill count, so he in theory should still bitch slap either one of them. I actually didn't mind Duncan as a character. Newly introduced here, Duncan Macleod of the Clan Macleod was thrown right into it as if we're supposed to know who he is. I know why though, but still, a TV show running from 92 to 98 with a decent score, apparently it's alright, but it's like we're supposed to have seen that before. I haven't, nor will I, as I have no intention of sitting through it or seeing a ghastly TV movie known as The Source. No thank you, this is my endgame for now. So Duncan's scenes overall were pretty decent. Adrian Paul is essentially charged with taking this franchise forward from here. Connor is now a bona fide side character, and his death has been on the wall for a while in terms of being in the franchise, so of course if they were going to have a part successful TV show, those up top would be looking to shift that franchise onto new, fresher shoulders. It doesn't really bother me in truth, as I said his death was tastefully done. I still don't acknowledge any film but the original anyway, so Macleod won the prize in my eyes, but still, at least Duncan was a new face to a franchise which desperately needed some reinvigoration if it's being forced to continue. Now then, with one good face in Duncan, there's always another side to those weighing scales. Welcome our villain Jacob Kell, and the actor, who, I'll state this right now, is the worst actor I've ever witnessed in Bruce Payne. Perfect name for the guy, Pain, because, and not to play on words, he is painful to watch. Can't stand the guy, he's got a face you just want to hit, he barely shows any emotion in any of his scenes and any of his films, and just he's awful. More emotion you could get out of a doorknob. Ever since Passenger 57, I can never take this guy seriously, and I recall those punches in my head even now. Him getting nailed in the face by Wesley Snipes' fist, and him no-selling it like Hulk Hogan, he just stands there as if nothing is happening to him. I'm dropping some harsh words, and I'm sorry for that. I don't like picking on one person in particular, but this fellow is just beyond my comprehension and my patience. Endgame has the worst villain in the franchise so far. I've not liked any of the bad guys since the Kurgan, and each one has gotten progressively worse. However, at least the other villains looked like they were giving it a go. Kel looks like he can't be bothered, but that's the acting for you. His character is super overpowered out of nowhere. His backstory of being a priest at Connor's mother's burning at the stake felt forced. Him killing all of his followers just felt weird. And just every aspect of Kel was downright dreadful. I hated him, and I still hate him now. He is just the worst.
In the end, there can be only one.
My overall verdict for Highlander 4 Endgame is the toughest yet. Where I gave The Quickening a 3 and The Final Dimension a 2, this one definitely trumps both of those. My pondering, however, is, does it justify a higher rating regardless? I like this one the best, but it still isn't great. 4 out of 10. I feel I'm being very generous with that. I would have no qualm giving it a 3, even if it is better than The Quickening. It's just that the attempt, and keyword is attempt, to make a somewhat decent and coherent story warrants praise, and Duncan's inclusion was the best addition. To be honest, I was expecting to give this a much harder time than I have done. Again, I must have seen this original theatrical edition many years ago, because I remember that being very bad indeed. I turned it off very early in the viewing. Now, there's some other things to talk about very briefly. There was a sanctuary, a place where immortals went to escape the violence of their world, a place where Connor spent close to 10 years in after Rachel's death. I don't like that at all, and some sort of covenant dedicated to defending the immortals, like, okay, what's this all about here? Makes no sense to me, but you put that to one side, and they were even going rogue to capture immortals and lock them up like they tried to do to Duncan. That aspect was crap, and that didn't change. Donnie Yen had a small role too. He was just underused. Barely in it after being introduced as ridiculously strong, he was just cast aside in an instant with little to no effect by Kel. Bizarre. And why they went through the effort to deceive us that Kel had killed Duncan's distant wife Kate was beyond me. Faith, Kate, whatever she was going by at the time, I suppose it was to anger Duncan and try and force that revenge mission Connor had and move it over to him. More than likely, and she was alright. A lot of screen time was actually given to her, but I didn't really care about her fate. I suppose they wanted to give us a happy ending, but it just felt a little off for me with her just walking out in the end, and I would have rather it ended with Duncan walking away from Macleod's grave. However, apparently the theatrical release did get that part right, and the Kate Lives ending is apparently the producer's cut only, and it does not happen in the other versions. Hey, what do I know though? I would have never made any sequels to the Highlander. The ageing Connor Macleod, you will have noticed, makes his return here, and they must have hired a similar prosthetics department because he looked eerily similar to his likening in The Quickening. It made me laugh, some of the scenes. I guess they just couldn't be bothered to make him try and look young because he looked just as old and ageing in some of his Scotland scenes like he did here in the current timeline. Adding the flashback scenes set between films, depending on what it is, just I wasn't fond of them. Little to no effort was made to make Macleod look anything like he did in the original. Poor, low-effort tripe in that respect. Like, why does he look older than Heather here? We saw Connor at Heather's bedside when she died. Right, stop. I'm going to get angry, and I've done that enough with this franchise already. Like I said, the best scene in the film is Connor's death scene. I hated seeing him die, but in a film I don't actually acknowledge, it was done well. You saw flashbacks to many highlights in his life. None with Ramirez, you might notice. I'm guessing showing Connery may have cost them a pretty penny they sought to avoid, but it doesn't make up for the atrocious acting on the part of our main villain. Thankfully, I won't have to watch this again though. Like Lambert, I'm out of here. I knew it would be tough trying to get through all of these sequels, and I knew what I'd be stepping into, and I did it anyway. It's my own fault, but this franchise tried its hardest to crush my soul, but I'm still here. Duncan's presence made this the best material in terms of films since the original release, but in my eyes there can and will be only one. Farewell Highlander sequels, you won't be missed. So what do you all think of the fourth instalment in the Highlander franchise, in Highlander Endgame? Do you agree with me that this is the best material since the original film? Or are you of a different mind? Perhaps you might think I was overly harsh here or too generous, I don't know. But I tell you what, rank the Highlander films in the comments in order of best to worst in your view. And if you have seen the TV show, let me know how good it is. I'm intrigued. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Please leave a like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed the review. And I'll see you on the next one.